Welcome back, Inebri-art. Is your host Andy, as always. And we tend to get a ton of musicians, but we've been on a streak where we haven't had a musician in quite a while, it feels like, and today is going to be no different. So today we are joined by Douglas Vermeeren. I think I got that right. Yep.
Got it.
And actor, director, stuntman. Welcome to the show, man.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks for having me. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, so I kind of took a peek at your website and it sounded like you kind of struggled in school until you kind of found acting. Is that a fair assessment?
Understatement of the year. Yeah, no, honestly, no kidding. It's funny, even during the pandemic, I tried to like say, hey, now I'm an adult, maybe I could go back to school. And I even still struggled there. So like school has always been like murder for me. So yeah, for real, I never could do it.
Yeah, I've never been a good student myself, um, especially going through like public high school and whatnot. I always excelled at math,
Oh yeah,
but
math
that
is the worst for me though.
but it was one of my worst grades
Oh, that's crazy.
because my argument was if I knew it, I shouldn't have to do the homework.
Fair enough, I
So I
guess.
would
Hey.
do well on the test, but my homework grade would be so low it would drag my average down.
That's crazy. Well, for me, like honestly, my feelings because I had to do a math class with this one that I went back for like the pandemic, whatever. And I was like, everything I need to know my whole life is on my phone. So why am I even doing this? Right. So I
Yeah.
couldn't get it. But I have to admit, and I'm not trying to bag on the school system, okay? But the reality is I think sometimes, and I'm not blaming the teachers either, I think it's the curriculum because I think the teachers to some extent really do want their kids to succeed, but we got to learn all this shit that's not worth anything to anybody. So I think that's really the problem, right? But anyway,
And
we,
well, I
we
think
get on
it's
that for a long time.
I think it's kind of twofold. I mean, like first of all, we learn a lot of things that you can just look up.
Right.
And the education isn't keeping up with the technology, but the same aspect, everyone learns differently. And it kind of was what I got the feeling from when I was reading your little bio there was, I learned differently than other people, and it sounded like once you found what you were into, it clicked.
Well, it's so strange that you say that because if I were to say what's the most valuable things that school gave me, number one, it was to be how to be social and to be with people and to work with people. That was the number one gift for sure. Because even in my industry in film and TV, they say it's all who you know, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really friendships. It's not even who you know. If you can't build a relationship with them, it's no good. So school helped me do that. But the other thing I think that school did is it kind of put me in a competitive spirit. And maybe a good example, totally not even acting related, is when, like, I'm from Canada originally, and in Canada, they make us speak French too, right? So
Yep.
when I was in about grade
I thought you were
eight,
gonna say play hockey.
yeah, well, there's that too, right? But anyway, so I had this teacher call me literally up to the front of the room, showed me my French marks, and it was like, yeah, maybe you should go do like home economics or something different, right? Because you're just not gonna skill, like
Yeah.
you nothing here for French. So no kidding, I was super upset about that. Obviously, it was a big blow to my self-esteem as a kid in grade eight and all this kind of stuff. So I went and I lived in France for about 2 years, and I was nervous going there in the first place because like I'll never learn how to speak French. But I was able to come home speaking fluent French, and I speak fluent French now. And no kidding, yep, I went back and I told that teacher, "Hey, do you remember me?" kind of thing, like that.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that one punch at the end. But the reality is, I wonder if that teacher's telling me I couldn't do something actually helped me. And then when I realized that I could do it, now for the rest of my life, I've been like anybody that tells me you can't, you're an idiot, right? Like I got no respect for someone who says to someone else, "You can't do it," because you can. You can do anything.
Uh, I've been asked many a time, like, what kind of advice would you give someone who wants to get into podcasting or music or whatever it happens to be? And my answer is always the same: don't do it.
Yeah.
Because if me telling you not to do it is going to cause you to pause even for a second, you don't
Yeah.
have what it takes. Like, you
Yeah.
have to kind of go in that face of, if someone tells you not to do it, you kind of have to have that, like, well, I'm going to do it anyways.
Well, it's interesting because my philosophy now is if one other human being on the planet has done it, that means you can do it. But don't try
Mhm.
to copycat them. Like, what's that saying that great artists steal? And I kind of think that that's the way I live my life is that I'm going to do it because I've seen other people do it, but I'm going to do it my way. And
Mhm.
my way for me is going to be better than whatever they've done, anyways. Because what do we say that you better be yourself because everybody else is taken, right?
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I think that that's the thing, right? Like if you try to copy somebody else, of course you're going to fail. But if you see that they've done it and use that as a catalyst, I think there's so many things that we can do. In fact, sometimes that's exactly what the world needs. Like it's kind of funny. I was having a conversation the other day with someone about different kinds of films that are out there. And they were pointing out how so many like action sequences have been stole from other movies. So and so then repeats it. But every time somebody does it, they add something to it and it makes it more unique, right?
Hmm.
Like if we're still building movies the same way that they were in the 1930s, I think we'd all be in trouble.
Yeah. But I mean, it's so hard to even come up with a unique idea just because of, the human experience is so much the same. Um, I went and saw Jim Jeffries with my son. Do you know Jim Jeffries, stand-up comic from
Yeah,
Australia?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, great.
So I went and saw him with my son Pat in this not this past December, the December before, and his new special came out, and he does a whole bit about how he takes I think it's hymns, which like lowers his libido, but grows his hair and then has to take something to offset that. And we have a stand-up comic that we use on the regular who, like, even before I went and saw Jim Jeffries, was doing that joke. And it's not that either one stole from the other person. It's just it's part of that common human experience that it's hard not, to not like it's not stealing. It's just everyone kind of arrives at that same thought at
Well,
the same time.
it's interesting that you say that because when I'm not doing movies, I actually speak on cruise ships. In fact, I just got home yesterday from speaking on a cruise ship that was just through Hawaii and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that rotation of that trip, they had seven different comedians come through. And it's interesting on a cruise ship. I mean, everybody's got sort of a common "we're on this boat together" thing. And a
Right.
lot of the jokes sorted to be about some of the same stuff that we always see on cruise ships. But it was just different that everybody had a different perspective and point of view and different things that, like from our backgrounds and everything, that just kind of gave us a new context. So it wasn't even like they addressed the same topics sometimes, but it wasn't always even the same joke. And it was funny how different people sort of saw the world. So I'm grateful for that. And by the way, even for actors, I think that's the
Yeah.
same thing too. Like when I'm at home and I'm reading a script, I have my interpretation on that. And oftentimes with the movie script, it's different than theater. I'm not rehearsing with the whole gang, right? Like I'm doing this on my own, coming up with a character, learning the lines. And then when I get on the set, well, the other actors have done that at home too. And so they've got a different interpretation of what they've read. And then you've got the director as well. And heaven knows even the writer probably is like, this is what I wrote. So
Right.
it's a collaboration where everybody just tries to find the art in the way that it is. And sometimes you come up with some really magical stuff. Other times, yeah, let's be honest, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah. But I
But
mean, that's part of the creative process. Like,
it is, right? It's just, and it's exciting, right? You just never know what you're going to be part of. And maybe that's part of the adventure that I like about it, right?
yeah. Yeah. We run a figure drawing group, and so many people are like, oh, it's not, I didn't do that good, or, I don't draw that well. I'm like, it's not, it's like a practice. Like,
Yeah.
I think creative people make bad stuff more often than they make good stuff. It's just you don't see it because it's the rehearsal or in the writing process, or before you put it to film or before you put it to canvas. Like, all your
Yeah.
practice is not good, because if it was good, it wouldn't be practice.
Well, I wonder too, because I was just not too long ago in Malaga, Spain, which is the hometown of Pablo Picasso. And I
Mm-hmm.
went to the museum and, I was really astonished actually, because I knew he was a great painter. But as I saw some of the stuff that he did by playing by the rules, it was fabulous. It was incredible stuff. Like it's just amazing. And then all of a sudden, when he breaks the rules, we've got stuff that sometimes people just don't understand,
Yeah.
right? You just
Yep.
don't get. But the thing that I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like there's probably people far better qualified to talk about him than me. But I almost wonder if him discovering his style was kind of like a happy accident, right? It's like this is like so way out there, but it's still fun to do, and people know I can do whatever, but I choose to do this kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes that whole creative process, you just discover stuff you didn't even really know existed, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like, you talk about him breaking the rules, and as a filmmaker, I'm sure you have that experience, but you have to know the rules,
In order to
so
break
you
them.
know why and when you're breaking them, opposed to just being not, completely ignorant of how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of that fine line, because there are certain things in a story or a film that have to happen.
It's interesting that you say that too. And I almost wonder because film is a very expensive medium, as we
Mhm.
know. And I think in order for people to trust you enough to allow you to break the rules, they kind of have to understand or trust that you know the rules. So when you make a suggestion that's contrary to that, they're like, yeah, like this guy knows enough. That might be something rather than just somebody who comes in and says, I'm going to try and spaghetti, throw this at the wall, see what sticks, and it might be good. And by the way, it's going to cost you a couple $100,000. You willing to roll the dice with me? I
Right.
mean, if you've got that experience and that framework, then people are more inclined to say, maybe he's onto something. But if you don't, it could be devastating. Like, I mean, it could be really a problem.
How much, I mean, you talk about budgets, like how much is budget like part of your life? I mean, as a director, I feel like that has to be that constant struggle. Everybody wants more to do more with, but like,
Yeah. But this is the other thing too. Sometimes if you give people too much money, they end up giving you crap because they overwork it. I
mhm.
kind of love, like, Steven Spielberg once said, although I've not found the source for this. Somebody, this keeps getting repeated as a quote from Steven Spielberg. So if it's not from him and he's watching this podcast, I'm sorry, but it sounds
Oh
pretty
my
clever.
God, if he's
Own it, own it, Steven.
yeah.
But he basically said films are never completed; they're simply abandoned. And I think if we look at some filmmakers, they always want to, oh, if I had more money, I would have done the scene like this or whatever. But the truth is, I think it's better when they don't have as much money, because now what do we use to solve the problem? It's creativity.
Mhm.
If you can't throw money at it, you have to be creative. And I think that, like, we just finished a film called How to Be a Hitman 101. I'm super excited and proud of it. The reality is we didn't have the budget to shoot a bunch of people and, do all the gun work and all the stuff that we normally would have done. And if you think a movie like Hitman, well, you got to kill a few people to make it work, right? So how do we
That'd be an
do
interesting movie if they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Hitman and nothing happens. People are like, what? This is a little bit ridiculous. But we found some very creative ways to accomplish those hits, so to speak. And I think we've done a really cool job. I don't want to give it away because when you see the film, you're like, oh my gosh, that's interesting, right? It's artistic. It's the cool way to do it. And so I think, this idea of having financial restraints, I think sometimes just makes people think a little harder than they normally would. And when we're taking the easy route, we don't really come up with creative stuff. We don't come up with stuff that people remember, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's that adage of, if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it, and it's like
They do.
part
When
of
they
what.
get money out of it, that's exactly what they
Yeah,
do. Everybody does the same scene, right? So
yeah. Like,
yeah,
you just made me think of, like, and it's not even a budgetary restraint, but in Kill Bill, when the bride is fighting the crazy 88,
yeah.
I think where they wanted to rate it X or NC-17 or something because of the violence, and they're like, oh, this needs to be cut, this needs to be cut. And Quentin Tarantino somehow came up with the idea, if he made it black and white, it wasn't going to be as shocking, and that's why most of that fight is in black and white, and it looks
Yeah.
amazing.
And you know what? For this film, we're kind of hoping for that nasty rating because we think that it kind of deserves that. It's pretty bloody. Like, we try to set some records with how much blood we could bring to the screen. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's interesting that you kind of use that as an example, because now what's interesting is when somebody sees Quentin do that, all of a sudden for the next 10 years, we got films that are basically trying to rip off Quentin.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if again, somebody has, this challenge with the budget and they can't pay for these things, well, I think they've got to find a new way to do it. And that's, or maybe it's not a budgetary thing. Maybe it's, again, like you said, the ratings, or maybe it's something that the actor can't perform, or maybe it's something that, right? So whenever there's a limitation, I think it causes us to find a new creative way, and that energy of creativity translates onto the film and just gives us a better production overall, right? And by the way, the other thing I noticed with film, people take the shortcuts, and I'm not trying to criticize filmmakers, because I'm in that category too. Okay, so this is me too. Generally, when we look at a script, we start thinking, how can I shoot the master of this? Then we're going to shoot the close-ups of this. Then we're going to shoot that character as a single. Then we're going to go and do the reverse on that. And that's kind of how we're going to plan the scene. But when you don't have the money to do all those shots, and you got to find a way to kind of capture this, or maybe you've got to find a way to, okay, let's, we can't bring in a dolly, and I don't have the ability to, I've got the actors for one day and there's no way I could shoot all this and that. We've got to find a new way to do it. And sometimes we come up with some really cool stuff. Right. So thank goodness for those limitations, because they keep us from thinking, how should we say, outside of the film school box.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So is that like what you do when you first get the script? Is you kind of like start setting up your shots and your storyboards? Is that kind of like step one?
It's interesting because I've as you were saying in the beginning, so I've done stunt work, I've produced, I've directed, but mostly I'm acting now. And so my job, I wouldn't say it's easier, it's different. So my job now is, how do I make a character out of this? And I want to do that without being cliched. So I'm always, first of all, one of the best advice things that I've ever been given when it comes to acting is to just listen, because every line that I will share, like, people don't normally talk unless they've got a stimulus,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what was it that made me talk? Was this something that made me feel like I got to defend myself? Something that made me angry? Something that hurt my feelings? Was it something I just feel like that person's wrong and I've got to correct them? So what is my motive for actually talking? So that idea of listening is really, really important. And then I think the other really big thing that everybody in life kind of has is, what do you really want? So if I'm in a
Yeah.
conversation in a film and there's, let's just use an example, a really beautiful woman there, maybe I'm super sexually attracted to her. So I'm going to say things that I think will progress me towards where it might be a possibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if I'm saying mean things to her, I would say them in a way that, hey, right?
Yeah.
So we got to kind of understand, what does the character want, right? Or if I want information from somebody, because I play a cop quite regularly. If I'm trying to interrogate somebody and I want them to slip up or something, I will have hidden motives of why I'm saying what I'm saying. So that makes it really difficult. Just a lot of homework on there. In fact, people often ask, what's the hardest part of being an actor? And then they fill in the blank. Is it memorizing lines? Well, sometimes, but really it's having the lines come across as human. So they're
Right.
not, right?
Mm-hmm. And I can relate to that as a visual artist, because the hardest thing to learn to draw is the human face. And it's because we look at them all the time. And even though you don't really think about it, we're really good at telling the difference between human faces. So you're trying to incorporate or to portray a human face, not only as a human face, but as a very specific human face. And it's that kind of like trying to make, like, we talk to people all the time. So you can tell, even in real life, not even necessarily movies, when someone's not being genuine. Like, we have that
It's so
ability.
interesting that you say that, because I was just talking with a friend of mine who's a theater actor, and on stage he said, my biggest challenge is I've got to, make this believable to this big audience. But I'm like, you know what, like with film it's a little different, because now our big audience, like, it's just this little frame, right?
Mm.
So people are looking at me really close up, and if I'm thinking something, they need to see it in my eyes. So even if I'm not using words, if I'm not genuinely thinking it, if I'm just doing a throwaway thought in the actions, people are like, it's so fake, it's phony.
Yeah.
So really, under that, so let's call it a microscope, all the details of what I'm trying to do really become evident. And if I'm not dialed in, it's difficult. And by the way, just to put it in context, you got to remember, on a film set, number one, you're doing this generally out of chronological order.
Yep.
You're doing it in a short or long take. So sometimes even just that look, he'll say, we just need this to pick up. Let's get him in front of the camera. We'll just get his reactions. And they'll have the continuity girl or someone else read his lines if that actor's not there. So I'm now responding to somebody who's not even the actor I'm acting with, right?
Right.
And then keep in mind, you've got a whole crew of people that are around with jobs to do, and lights and cables and cameras and makeup and blah, 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 blah. And you're still having to have that intimate moment. Right. So I think sometimes people kind of don't understand the magic that's just occurred. Like when we see somebody like an Al Pacino and they're doing a close up on him and he's even just having a thought. Right. I mean, that's powerful stuff. That's a master at work. And honestly, I'm jealous. I wish I could get there better, because some of those guys that I admire, they're so incredible. Right. They're just incredible.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes of an actor not doing anything, I guess, is the way I would put it. Even like it's just kind of weird. Hopefully you'll know what I'm talking about. Is there's a scene in Ocean's 11 where Brad Pitt is sitting next to George Clooney, and George Clooney's like running over, do we have enough people? And Brad Pitt is just completely zoned out and not even like listening to George, and George is just kind of talking to himself. And Brad Pitt is so good at being there, but not like he's literally just like, like if your friend was just watching the game and he's just, all this movie production is going around him and he's just like totally disinterested in what George is saying.
I really love Brad Pitt. And in fact, there's quite a few actors in my mind that fall into this category, where a lot of people have the mistaken idea that, he is where he is because he's just damn good looking. And
that's part of it. It's not an option.
Yeah. Sure, he loves that compliment. But
yeah.
The thing that I think is missing with that is people don't realize that there's a lot of good looking people on this planet, but he has the ability to just captivate people. with his actions. Like, I mean, there's so many films of his that I just love, and obviously Fight Club is one that comes to mind, obviously,
Of course. Yeah.
but you can't help but watch when he's on the screen and just want to see him, right?
Hmm.
Like, just watch what he does. One of my favorite scenes is Seven, or films is Seven, and of course you remember at the
Oh
end
yeah.
when he opens up that box and sees what's in there. And for
Hmm.
those that haven't seen it, well, go see it. I'm not going to give it away, but it's just like he's just so good. Like, it's just he's a great actor. I enjoy him a lot. I think he's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
And I think he's willing to be okay with not being the pretty boy. Like if you've seen 12 Monkeys,
Oh yeah.
like he's doesn't have to be that Hollywood, leading man all the time. He'll take
But
the interesting
I
role to
think
take the interesting role.
Yeah, and I think this is an important thing. Like, somebody told me once, and hopefully I'm doing it. Like, I'm trying my best as an actor. It's very tempting to say yes every time a job comes, especially if you're not working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big key is learning how to stay in your lane, right? So, what is it that you're really good at? What is it that you can be believable at portraying, and the kind of acting style that you have and everything else. So for example, I could never see like Ben Stiller in an Ocean's 11, right? Like,
Yeah.
we saw him in that Tower Heist, and I think he did great there. That's a heist movie again, but it's a different lane. And I love Ben Stiller. I'm a big fan of his. In fact, I love what's happening with this Tropic Thunder discussion right now, as you're probably well aware.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, he's in a different lane, and he understands where he belongs, and that's made him very successful. Same with Adam Sandler, and now we see Dwayne Johnson as well. Like, the kinds of films that they're doing, they understand their lane, and I think that's a big part of being an actor. It's like, maybe a better way to describe it is every actor has a brand,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we play something too far outside our brand, it alienates the people that we work with, right?
Yeah, I agree a lot, but there are like, I mean, you brought up Adam Sandler, and one of Adam Sandler's biggest hits recently was Uncut Gems, and that is very much
Yeah.
outside the Adam
And
Sandler brand,
he's shifting brands, he's shifting lanes. And I wonder, and again, I'm not saying that this is necessarily the truth, this is my opinion on it. I wonder if, as some of us as actors get older, we're like, there's things I haven't done. And where I was, like, say for example, even Pierce Brosnan, as the James Bond, the suave kind of person. As he's gotten older, there's been a lot of different roles that he's taken on that are not
Mhm.
necessarily in that Remington Steele kind of lane, right?
Yeah.
And another person I admire because he can pull it off and he does very well with it. So I think, there's those that can transition very easy into those other brands, especially as their acting and so forth matures. So yeah, I love
Yeah.
Adam Sandler too, and I hope we see more. I'm trying to be gentle with the word. Let's put it this way, because like with his younger stuff, like the Happy Gilmore and stuff, we all enjoyed that. It was super
Yeah.
fun, but it wasn't maybe as deep as some of the more.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to be, like
But it's not
that's kind of the
supposed to.
point. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying I want to be gentle. I definitely don't want to sound like I'm being negative about it or not enjoying it, because I still put those movies in and I laugh my guts out. In fact, everybody's in the audience now is going to think I'm an idiot for saying this, but one of my favorite movies is Waterboy. Still, I just love it. It's funny, right? It's a
I
fun
know a
movie.
lot of people who wasn't. I was more of a Happy Gilmore. I like The
I
Wedding
love Happy
Singer.
Gilmore too,
Yeah.
but I mean, all of them made
Yeah.
me laugh. But anyways, yeah, Adam,
So
if you're
uh,
watching, I love you.
you were actually making me think of kind of that stay in your lane, and I feel like there are actors who don't have a lane and they kind of fall into that character actor. you
Sure.
know it's interesting because I feel like that would be harder, and the one that jumps to my mind is Giovanni Ribisi.
Oh, of course,
I
yeah.
think he's an amazing actor, and like none of his roles are similar, and like I don't feel like he gets enough credit because like he's an amazing actor, but like most people have no idea who he is.
Oh yeah, no, and I love him too. And there's so many that he's done that just honestly, I love it. In fact, I was just watching. Have you seen Middlemen?
I don't
Where
think
he and
so.
his partner come up with the ability to they develop a system for porn sites to be able to use credit cards.
Oh no, I've not seen this.
Oh, and Luke Wilson is in it and all this. Go see it. Okay, I'm not going to give it away, but he
Okay.
did a fabulous job in that. He's great, but it's not a super well known movie. But I was just watching it the other night, and I just thought this is fabulous. It's based on a true story, by the way.
Yeah.
Kind of what happens is they end up getting like Giovanni Ribisi's character and another fellow, they end up getting Luke Wilson to kind of manage their business as it grows, and they get entangled with the Russian mafia and all this other kind of stuff. And it's not really about the porn industry. It's about just the whole mix up of how everything that could go wrong does go wrong.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's very
That's
interesting, right?
the classic, that's a classic story trope,
Oh, of course.
like
Yeah,
worst
yeah,
case
yeah.
scenario.
Sure. But it's a true story based on
Yeah.
how a lot of things, even like I think PayPal came out because of this thing. Everything how we process payments online sort of developed because of this, right? So it's just very interesting
Yeah.
historically.
That's cool. So what are you working on now? You said Hitman 101 is coming
Yeah,
out
I
or is
just
out?
finished
Sorry.
101. I don't know the release date on that, but it's just around the corner. So I'm sure that they'll bring me back in for a couple of reshoots and some. Often what happens is they'll bring me in to clean up sound, so it could be some ADR and some things like that.
Mhm.
I'm actually super excited. I personally think that that's going to be one of my best movies for this year. And as your listeners probably know, once COVID has kind of gone away, like now it's going away. There's more movies being shot probably now than ever before because the streaming services. You guys have watched everything. So
Yeah.
we got to get more stuff in. So I've got that. I just finished a scary movie in London called Bring Me a Skin for Dancing In. It's a scary movie. I'm going back to do another one called Big Cats. I start on that May the 8th this year. I've also got another one called The Lurker, which is I play another cop in that. It's a scary movie as well. Funny enough, I'm shooting in Niagara Falls. So I'm not sure. I've not been to the location, so I hope they don't throw me over the falls. But hey, you never know.
I don't think they can do that. I mean, they
Yeah,
could, not legally.
yeah,
Um,
legally, we'll see what happens.
yeah.
I actually just signed on to do a TV series too called Operation Majestic, which I think is really cool because it's based on conspiracy theory UFO stuff, especially with all the shit we're shooting down lately.
Oh
It's
my
just
God,
like this is
yeah.
perfect timing. By the way, I thought this would be the best. We got to build a balloon in the shape of the Millennium Falcon and send it up there just to see what happens when they go to shoot it down. Right? Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
awesome?
Oh,
But
it's so crazy right now,
it
and
is crazy.
um, but whatever.
Yeah. But I love Operation Majestic. I think it's a cool storyline, and I'm allowed to talk a little bit about it. So, kind of what happens is it's a TV series, of course.
Mhm.
And so basically, this guy starts off the story at the beginning. He comes into the police station with his hands up, and he's got blood all over him and a gun in his hands. He just keeps saying, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to. He's all like kind of in his own thoughts, and he's like kind of messed up. So I'm like the town sheriff kind of guy in this small town, and I sit him down in the interrogation room. I'm like, tell me about it. Like, what's going on here? Tell me about it. And he just basically says, the lights in the sky made me do it. The lights in the sky. So I'm like, who does that? Like, this is messed up. This guy's like totally got mental illness or whatever, or I don't know what's going on. So I go out to investigate his ranch and all this kind of stuff, and I find nothing there that would indicate there's something bizarre. Like, it's just a regular ranch. But as I go to leave, all of a sudden this old stranger dude stops me and he's like, are you here about the lights in the sky? And now all of a sudden we understand there's something more, and he points out that one of them at one point crashed on the hill over there, and I need to go check it out. And then it leads into this whole conspiracy with government stuff and all this very X-Filesy, but I think it's a cool story. Like, it's really right. Then I'm also heading to the Philippines to do I guess it's a bounty hunter slash, I don't know, I'd compare it maybe to Kill Bill, super ultra violent. It's called A Bullet with Their Name on It. So we're shooting that in June. I just finished something called The Awakening, which is a science fiction show. Aaron Glanfield, who is a award-winning director, he wrote the script and directed this, and so it's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm busy as all can be.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, like, it sounds like
Hey,
you're
but if
doing a
you're
ton of
watching,
stuff.
but still looking for more opportunities, reach out. We'll talk about it. But yeah, no, I mean, it's exciting times. Like, I really love it, and I'm so glad that so many people now have access to equipment and funding and talent. And like, it's not like the old system where you need to have a whole pile of money and connections to make a movie. Like, you can do so much now with what's available. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was I read an article. All right, it was online. I read the headline, and it was about some like 17-year-old kid who shot something and put it up on YouTube, and it's called, I hope I'm not screwing up, I think it's called The Back Room.
Okay.
And it's this weird psychological horror type short found footage kind of thing. And it's doing so well on YouTube that they're giving him a movie deal.
That's awesome. And that happens. And
Yeah.
this is it. what I'm talking about. Too often, people say, well, I got to get all this stuff together before I start making a movie and all this, blah, blah, blah. And they give themselves excuses. What do we say? The size of your butt determines the size of your success. So if you say, but, can't, but, then you're never going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the interesting thing. And again, I'll get this quote a little bit wrong, but Quentin Tarantino says, if you want to be a filmmaker, go make a movie. It's like that simple. Go make a movie. And we've all got the ability to do it. And I've got friends that, no kidding, I mean, they've shot stuff on their phone. They've done tests that they've put on YouTube to see if people respond. They've even not had actors, and they've set up their camera, flipped it around, then bring it back into something like iMovie or one of these other programs and done their editing, and nobody knows that they're the only actor in their movie, right? But they've done something. And I think this is that so many of us just we wait for things to happen. I can promise you already, if you're worried that it will suck, I'll just tell you right now, it's gonna. Because everybody's...
But it's okay. Like that goes back to that, like,
right?
The majority of what artists make is not good.
Cool unless you've gone through something that sucks. That's the idea, right? So get your suck shit out of the way. Just do something so you learn how to do it well, and you'd be surprised, right? So here's one of the things a lot of people ask me, what do I do to kind of keep my edge sharp? And no kidding, I'm always watching YouTube videos to learn, because there's some incredible people out there teaching and sharing online. We've learned a lot. In fact, I went to film school, but I've learned more on YouTube. Then the other thing I'd say is, again, I'll also be reading everything that you can. So I'm always buying books, and especially in the magazines, got great articles from the film people. And then, the number one thing that worked, if you have money, this is easier, but it's not required. And that's to find people smarter than you and just work with them. Either hire them or volunteer with them. Like one of my first movies that I did, I produced and directed a movie called The Opus, and it's a personal development documentary. And so I had investors and people helping me with it. But I'd gone to film school, and I'd been on a bunch of movie sets before. So I knew kind of what was going on. But now I'm the director. For the first time, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of pressure here. So what I did is I hired this guy. His name's Renee Collins, and he was one of the camera operators on Brokeback Mountain, Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights, Good Luck Chuck, a bunch of them. And so I just shut up. I sat back, let him set up the camera, let him set up the lights, let him set up all the shots. And then he'd come over and goes, well, how does this look? And I'd come over and I'd go, well, just a minute. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. And I pretend that I basically, right? Like I did next to nothing. And I said, okay, let's go. Anyways, on the movie, my name's the guy directing it. But really, let's be honest, I was there as a student. And I never learned so much in my life except just watching this guy. So, I mean, if you can surround yourself with people far, far smarter than you, like, who cares who gets the credit? Like, honestly, if it's your movie, you're going to get the credit anyways, whether you did any work at all or not. Right? But the credit isn't really the goal here. The credit can go to whoever it is, right? You want to just learn. And I love what Steve Jobs said once. He says, we don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. So the same applies. You don't have to spend money to do that. There's tons of Facebook forums and groups where you can join and say, hey, who wants to make a movie? And just go and hang out with other people that have made movies already. And you'll learn so much. Plus, they often bring their own equipment, which is good.
Right? And it's one of those, like, you really have to be open to that kind of.
Oh, yeah.
The people who are like, it's my way or the highway, don't learn anything.
Well, and they also produce crap. Because all good stuff like that, like all success, if you think about it, even somebody, like I got a friend, he won gold medal in the Olympics, or silver medal, sorry. And he said, I've got a trainer, I've got a nutritionist, I've got sponsors, I've got teammates, his parents. Well, I fill in the blank with all those people. Success is always created by a team. It's never created by an individual. And if you think of a guy who's trying to do everything, and what do you think about this? Like, what if we had an NFL player and it was his job to pass and receive, but also to sell the tickets in the stand, clean the uniforms, book the hotels, book the travel. I mean, he's not going to be able to do nothing. So here's the deal. Don't step out of your comfort zone. Find out what you're good at, step into your brilliance zone, and find other people who can carry the rest. Right? That's what's going to make you successful. And find the best people that you possibly can, right?
It'd be easy to work with, I think.
Yeah. By the way, the other thing I think is important, especially in the creative world, don't burn bridges.
Yep.
Everybody's always in motion. So if you've got somebody like, well, he sucks, or I'm jealous of that person, so I'll badmouth them or I'll say something, it always comes back. Yep. And the reality is that guy who, like no kidding, I was on a movie not too long ago. There was a guy that I ran into that, no kidding, I knew years ago. But when I knew him the first time, he was basically pulling cables, doing nothing, getting coffee for people, just kind of running errands. And some people treated him like shit. Well, now do you know he's producing and he's directing? And so now people are like, hey, I want to be your friend. But he remembers.
Yeah,
He knows
he knows who his friends were when he was pulling cables. Yeah,
everybody remembers, right? And I'm just, I'm glad that at an early age I learned how to be nice.
yeah,
Because I think
it,
that goes a long way. In fact, sometimes even more than talent. Because if you got a guy who's super super talented and he's just a dick, they'll skip over him to grab the guy who's moderately talented that they just want to work with.
right. Yeah, and
Yeah,
the easiest things. Don't be a dick. Be on time.
100%.
You know.
And you cost people money if you're not. So again, I'm not saying I'm the most talented guy out there, but I promise I'm the nicest. So hire me,
I
right?
don't know, man. Like you sound like you don't have a lot of free time coming up.
Well, lately, the other thing that I try to do too with all the filmmakers I do work with, I do try to help out. So obviously, when I'm doing podcasts like this, I try to mention the shows that I'm
Mhm.
on when I'm getting interviewed by other things. I try to help those filmmakers because I want the show. If I'm going to be involved in it, I want it to succeed.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not one of these actors that just kind of punches it in and I did my job. Bye. See you later. I'm on the next project and good luck with that. I don't want to be that guy. I want people like I first of all only take on projects that I super love and I believe in. But when I believe in it, man, I want to give something to it too. I want to do everything I can to help this be a winner, right?
And it's one of those, even, just I want this to be a winner. It helps you. Like
Of
it
course
helps
it
you if
does.
it's a winner.
Of course, everybody wins,
Yeah.
right? Everybody wins, right?
So
And that goes back to that idea that I was talking about. Films are made in collaboration. It's just a collaboration too, right?
yeah.
So if everybody brings their best to the table, we should have something that's enjoyable in the end.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with someone this morning, and I had gone to a fundraiser last night for local music and theater programs. And like, oh, that's really nice. Do you do a lot of, charity work? And I'm like, I don't know if it's a lot, but I feel like it's important. I always say you hold the door for the guy behind you.
100%.
When I worked in, retail, you always tried to train the guy to take your job, you know?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Somebody showed me a diagram one time, and if I was a really good artist like you, I'd probably try and draw it and show you. But this image was a mountain, but there's three people climbing on it. There's one reaching his hand down to help the guy in the middle up, and the guy in the
Mhm.
middle is reaching down to help the guy at the end. And he goes, "No matter where you are in life, you're the guy in the middle. We need help from the people above us to help us get to wherever we're going." And that's why fake it till you make it doesn't really work because people who are above you, they know if you're full of shit, right? They
Yeah.
totally can see it. So you've got to be teachable and you got to be willing. And then, of course, you can act as if, but that's a mental thing and it's done privately, not publicly. I mean, you're trying to be your best self and you're confident, but you're putting in the effort, right? Like
Mhm.
you're not faking it if you're really doing the skills and you're learning and you're trying to grow. So you need this person's help. But at the same time, it's your responsibility to help the person below you. And if you don't help the person below you, the guy up top is also going to quit on you too. Because
Right.
that's just the way successful people are. They don't want to help assholes. Put it
Yeah.
that way. Right? Nobody wants their reputation tainted by saying, I brought this guy who's it's like if you were to host a pool party at your house and you brought the guy that took a shit in the pool, everybody's like, oh, we're not coming over anymore to your house.
Right.
But if you bring somebody who's, helpful and kind and everybody wants to see that guy win.
Yeah.
And so you'll have help and support from both, right?
It's interesting that the fake it till you make it thing is, I always feel like that is a internal thing, not external. And I feel like
Well,
it's
it's
always
supposed
meant
to.
to
It was
cover
meant.
the imposter syndrome type thing,
I agree. And you know what? That's also a big challenge that I think a lot of these people have when they're faking it is that you can only keep that up for so long because you will get found out, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just so important. I think that you've got to be learning. Now, I want to caveat this though. You will still make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So there's going to be days that you're going to still like, oh, man, I don't know if I'm good enough for this. Or like, it's hilarious. Like I do public speaking too sometimes, right? Like I go out and
Hmm.
do, especially with the personal development movies I did. And I'll never forget, I went to this one event, and no kidding, up until that point, I'd spoken publicly in front of large groups. I think the largest group I've spoken was 6,000 people in an audience. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I had this one event. I'd already done like 200 events. And no kidding, I looked at this audience. There was literally 200 people there. And I got nervous because there were some people in there that I knew and some people that they were highly successful. And I started second guessing myself, right?
I'm totally in this position right now.
Are
I am
you?
I
Yeah.
am moderating a panel at the end of this month at the Bar and Restaurant Expo. I've moderated panels before, but much smaller panels. So now I'm
Right.
kind of like, oh shit, did I kind of overstep my but I mean that's the point. You
Yeah.
overstep to make it a
Yeah.
new area. But so give me some advice. What
So
do I?
one of the things that I did anyway, so I was sitting kind of in the green room before going out, and I just through my mind went through all the events that I'd previously done that were successful to just remind myself, you've done this a million times and you can do this.
Yeah.
Right. And the more that I did that, the more I was kind of like, hey, but you know what the actual big thing was? Trust myself and have fun. Right? In fact, no kidding, even some of the movies I've done, I get on a set and I see there's a big actor there that I've admired for years. Now I got to go do a scene with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, oh my gosh. Actually, one that was really cool who just passed away was Tom Sizemore. I did a show with Tom Sizemore not too long ago. And it's funny, when we arrived on set, he was like, yeah, the script is not great. Do you want to improv this with me? So I'm just being invited to forget everything that I spent time learning and thinking about. And he says, we're going to improv this on the spot. And what do you say to that guy? No, you'll have to do it.
I think
I
we
mean,
should
you
stick to
can't
the
say
script,
that,
Mr.
right?
Sizemore.
Yeah, enjoy yourself. I'll watch from back here.
Yeah.
No, so I said, let's do it. And I think that idea of just having fun with it goes a long way. Because I think when we overthink it and then we think, oh man, we're being judged, or we've got to have it a certain way, or we've got to, we can't forget these kinds of things. And we overthink it and we end up dropping the ball because we're not in the moment, right?
Yeah.
We're not present anymore. We're somewhere else trying to sort it out. So I think the biggest thing that you could do for that moderation, just go in there and have fun, be your personality. Like, no kidding, our time together, I've enjoyed chatting with you. And people are going to enjoy watching it, and just be present and be real. And as you're moderating, obviously listen carefully to what's going on around you and be spontaneous. Like, I'm sure all your stand-up comedy friends would say half the best jokes come when somebody in the audience says something ridiculous that you can play off of.
Of course.
Or whatever, right? So if you're not present, you'll never see those moments. Right? Yeah.
Excellent advice. I appreciate
that.
That.
Let me know how it goes.
I will. Where can people go to find out what you're working on, all your social media, all your plugs and all that?
Yeah, so basically anywhere you type in my name, Douglas Vermeeren, you're going to find me. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on all those things, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. I also have a bunch of stuff on YouTube. So a lot of times we send out a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, which is really, really cool. So that's about it. But what I will mention is there are some imposters out there. I was looking the other day, there's this picture of me, and then I clicked on that profile. I'm like, I didn't set this up. And I see it was some lady from the Philippines.
Oh,
so that one is not me. She's not going to be super interesting for you guys to follow. Or maybe she will be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But just make sure you get the ones that's me. We have a fun time. And that's movies for you, right?
I was talking with a business friend of mine just the other day, and I was telling her how we get a lot of scammers that try to pose as us. And she's like, really? I'm like, I take it as a compliment. Like, we're worth their time to try and, hustle other people. It sucks, but I mean,
what's interesting is one of my friends, he was in the movie The Secret. I don't know if you remember that a couple of years ago.
I don't think so.
Personal development thing was on Oprah and Larry King and all. It was a big deal. Anyways, he was saying the minute that movie came out and he became somewhat of a celebrity because of that, he knows people all over would like buy the domain name of his name without him, and then they would put up fake profiles and all stuff. And he said that the best way that I found to deal with it is to actually contact them, and rather than tell them shut it down, simply say, I'm glad you admire my work. Would you be interested to partner with me? And so they've taken the effort to buy all these assets to kind of like hijack his stuff. He said many of them just said, yeah, I'll partner with you. And then they became official sort of friends, but then control it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, creates revenue stream, whatever. So I don't know. I've tried to reach out to some of those. They don't always return my calls. It is what it is, right?
But I think so. We have always struggled to try to, like, we're 300 and I don't know, 30 some odd episodes in, and I don't have like a good closing, and I never have, and I've kind of messed around with it, and I've put on the guest a few times. But I think something that you said, it was so simple and is a recurring thing, and it is literally like Inebri-art is founded on two premises: is everyone is welcome to be involved, and it has to be fun.
Has to be fun.
So
if it's not fun, everybody finds out soon enough, right? And then you can't create anything great when you're angry or upset or hurt, right? Yeah. So it's true. You can create depressing kind of music or art or these kinds of things, and that's an outlet. But you got to realize, even as you're depressed, creating something is healing. So you
Mm-hmm.
are finding, in a sense, some fun by releasing that, and your
Right.
energy and your heart is there. So when I say fun, I don't mean it always has to be filled with cotton candy. It
Right.
has to be fulfilling, and that brings fun, right? That brings, how should you call it? Maybe a better word is immediate gratification. It brings, you're involved in something that's giving you joy or fulfillment.
Yeah.
That
So
makes
I'm going to say thank you for joining us. And I'm going to say to our listeners, we'll catch you guys again next week and go out and have some fun.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah. That's it, man.
Easy peasy.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at inebriart.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at inebriart.com. Thanks again for listening.